you know, we downsized here to get into our new place, and I had all kind of furniture and I had bunk beds and everything. And I called somebody and they put me in touch with the Afghan Refugee Project, and I was told they didn't need anything. And so I don't know what the story is, but they,
Bruce,
anyway,
I'm volunteering at Lutheran Family Services. We were just at an apartment of some Afghan women this morning, and I do believe they need furniture now. I think that it was too early when you asked, and none of the refugees had come to Colorado yet, but they're coming in pretty regularly now. And so I'll make a call for you tomorrow and see, I think they'd run out of storage space.
no, that was-
And so I'll make a call because I know based on I've been into 2 apartments, and I know based on what I've seen that they could use what you have.
okay, all right. All right, and the other thing is that we're downside to the point where Adrian and I are in the same office here, and she's got a Zoom meeting starting. So I'm going to unplug and plug back up in the kitchen. So I'll be back in a minute.
All right, boy.
Do a knitting project.
Right. And
Very
funny.
important stuff, right?
Very important.
All right, here we
All
go.
right. See you soon, Bruce.
Now, in fact, I might just carry it in. It'll still be working. I don't
There
know.
you go.
Oh, boy.
Mhm.
So
We just-
Bruce, if you could still hear me, I sent you the message to
Yeah, I see that.
Comcast this time, okay?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that
Okay,
ought to work. Okay.
okay, all right. So if
Hey, just
anybody didn't know, Bruce's email address currently is comcast.net, not gmail.com.
Okay, here we go. We're just going to walk around and I'll show you the lake and everything. If it was different.
All
Isn't
right.
it dark?
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next parts of the agenda, because it's a big agenda.
Right.
So-
And we do want to sort of involve as many people as we can in some of the tasks that if we're going to accomplish what we want to accomplish, people will need to agree to do certain things. So we have future programming as the next chunk here. Oh, no, I guess did you want to talk about, sorry, go back to your.
That's all right. The Getting to Zero Waste, all the information is there. You can get the link on the update. So that's all that needs to be said,
Okay.
other than it might be an interesting thing to watch. You can watch it as a delayed recording if you register ahead of time.
Great.
Go ahead, Jan, with future programming.
So we've been in discussion with Steve Barber, Pam, and I have been in discussion with the group Ready to Work about implementing a recycling plan there. And any of you who attended the Second Chance presentation 2 weeks ago and looked at the list of ideas that Second Chance Center would like assistance with, probably noted that recycling in both their residential and their administrative building is something they would like to pursue. And Second Chance Center would also like to install, I think, some raised beds or at least some gardens to grow vegetables and flowers. And those are 2 areas that certainly fall within our sort of interest area and mission. Hi, Liz. Nice
Hi.
to see you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to, well, it's a long day, but I'm here.
It is a long day for you. Anyhow, because we are a creation justice church now, and one of the parts of that covenant is to look beyond our 4 walls and into the community. Steve and Pam and I thought that this was a great opportunity to see how we could work to support programs that might meet our values at Ready to Work. And then if that works out, maybe as a template, take that idea to the Second Chance Center. So we were in conversation with the community relations person, Marlo. I don't remember her last name, Steve.
Marlo Alston.
Walston.
Alston.
Alston.
AL. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Marlo Alston last week, and we typed up a proposal that we sent to her so that she can take it to the board. And the reason we wanted to at least bring this up now is because it will, if we take on some of these programming ideas within the community, it will require some financial support. And we'll get to our finances down in the next part of the agenda, but and we don't really know how much money that will be, but we have really a fair amount of money. There's, we can get to that, the details later. But I'm going to pass this to Steve now, because Steve is the individual on our team here who has a long-term relationship with Ready to Work and saw a need there and sort of drew us in, Dupram and I, into a conversation with Marlo.
Yeah, so I guess just a little background. When Mustard Seed Group went out and looked at a couple of organizations, when we cut down that list of organizations that we wanted to give our very large grant to and partner with out in the community, one of the finalists was Ready to Work. And the actual finalist, or the one that got the majority of the funding support, was Second Chance Center. When we were touring the facilities, one of the things we noticed at Ready to Work was the fact that they didn't have any recycling there. We noticed the same thing at Second Chance. Ready to Work, their CEO from their facility up in Boulder has already been starting to implement recycling, I guess, up in that facility, but that had not been done. They have no recycling going on or any education for their homeless residents there in that program, because that Ready to Work is a program that takes people and who are homeless and then puts them in the housing after participating in a program for approximately a year while they provide them residential stay there and job training and casework support. That's their three-legged stool. So long story short, they expressed a lot of interest that in partnering with us for creation justice type programs, including potentially recycling. So we're at that point now where, as Jan said, Pam, Jan, and I spoke with their community relations specialist, and that's sort of the first step. And now she's going to talk to their program director and their facility director to see, because you know they have their main program, which is to provide housing for the homeless. So this would be something in addition to what they're doing, but they see the benefit and they would like to become a green nonprofit. And so we've sent that information to them, and I think was sent on Friday. I think, Jan, you wrote up a draft of that, and then I believe it was sent on Friday to Marlo, and Marlo is going to be presenting that to their director and their board over the course of this present week that we're in. So we haven't heard anything back, but the concept for us, I think, as a group, as Creation Justice, is that rather than reach out to 5 or 6 different organizations, that we use this as if Ready to Work does decide that they want to engage with us, this can develop a framework for us that then we can reach out to other groups and do the same thing, bringing recycling programs to other organizations out in the community, and potentially some education for their residents. If we have people who are within the church or within our Creation Justice Ministry. And also, since this group has a lot of folks that we relate to and connect with in the environmental world, perhaps we can be a conduit to get those folks to also participate with Ready to Work and with other organizations like Second Chance. So I didn't know I was going to be presenting on this tonight, but I hope that gives you a good picture on where we hope this goes. And we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Steve. That was a good little background too on Ready to Work. I assume we'll hear back from or follow up with Marlo in the next 2 or 3 weeks and have more information by our next meeting. But just briefly, I think a team, it would require a team of 3 or 4 creation justice people to do this correctly, I think. And it will involve research into the best kinds of bins and where they want them placed and how the labeling and signage should go and what the best way to present information to both staff and to the residents. So that's down the road, but the proposal is out there, and it would, we've got about $11,000 in our Creation Justice Ministry fund, and I think it's really important for us to look for ways to help spread the message in the community, and this is one way. And I think it's great to be maintaining relationships with organizations that we have established a relationship with. So I know WISE has been involved with Ready to Work. It was a Share the Plate recipient in, I believe, November. So it's nice to maintain those relationships instead of just have a one-off, cash kind of supplement sort of thing. So we're excited about it, and we'll report back at our next meeting.
And
And
so
if it,
I guess I just also want to ask, since Second Chance presented, not last week, but the week before with this long list, and they've already, asked for help with recycling, is that something that we want to at least respond to, saying, yes, we're interested, we have another pilot in the works, we'll get back to you, or do we just let it sit for a while, or how do you think that we should respond to Second Chance?
Oh, I think we should respond to Second Chance just the way you described, and in fact, was planning to do that with Marilyn Miller.
Okay.
Just to let her know rather than formally with Regina. So do people think that's the appropriate step to take? With
To
Second?
complete this, the survey that Marilyn is asking people to, that we could do it as an organization, but at the RET meeting last week, it appears as though there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to be done in order to even begin to coordinate volunteer services. There's a lot of rough edges. So we've got a little bit of time to work with, but to complete that survey that Marilyn had put out from the Creation Justice Ministry and just put that in the hat with all the other volunteer surveys that are being completed would probably be the most efficient way to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
And before we leave this general topic, if you could just email me or let me know later, I'm particularly interested in volunteering energy into planting the raised gardens with Second Chance. And I can take it forward if I just get your suggestion. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Phyllis.
Jan and Pam, do you think there's opportunity out there for us with the organization to apply for grants to fund the project? I know we have money, but it seems like there's maybe 350 Colorado and other organizations or the governments might be interested in funding some of this.
One of the things that I had discussed with Marlo, and she's also going to take to their board, and I assume Second Chance has the same person or persons, but Ready to Work has a grant writer. They get grants all the time, and this is an area that they haven't written a grant on. So I mentioned to her that she ought to mention to their board and to their facility director to get their grant person to go out there and look, because they might be able to get the lion's share of the funding for this from a grant that's environmentally, centered. It's a good idea, Beth.
And how much of the mustard seed money could be used for things like that too? I don't know Wasn't that part of the partnership?
Well, the mustard seed money was given without restrictions
Mhm.
to all the organizations. One of the ideas behind the mustard seed group was that we weren't going to come in and basically put a bunch of parameters on the groups. And so it's something that they would decide whether or not to use some of those funds for this or not.
Okay. All right. Well, is there someone who would follow through and do the survey and say that we're interested, or?
I'll do it because I did the proposal and I know what it entails, and I'd probably be
Okay.
one person on it anyhow.
All right, thank you, Jan.
Steve?
And does Phyllis want to do it on behalf of the gardens, or can we just combine the interest in that? That's one category on their request list.
Either way, I'm glad to help Jan or whatever you
Okay.
want me to do.
Great. All right, well, moving on then, in new business, Earth Day will be coming up in April, as it always does. And there's quite a bit out there. We'd like to have a big celebration. Outdoors because of COVID. There is Interfaith Power and Light has a Faith Climate Action Week for April 22nd through May 1st. And the theme is Our Children's Right to a Livable Future, which is part of that lawsuit that we have been following for the last, gosh, it's been 4 or 5, 6 years, I think. But wouldn't it be fun to plan a fun community event that would include families, have it intergenerational, just to highlight the importance of still, caring for the environment and Earth. Nancy, I'm going to ask you to maybe share some of the ideas. We are, Beth and Nancy and I are in a group with another friend who has done some amazing work in her community of just building knowledge and interest and enthusiasm in things being sustainable and green. And we thought we could piggyback off of that and build on it. Nancy, would you share some of those ideas or some of your
Sure.
ideas of what you thought that this might look like?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to describe this idea in kind of broad stroke picture as an event for celebrating Earth Day. And then we can maybe open it up for some discussion in order to figure out if we want to, if we've got enough support to submit some kind of a proposal to Jenny and the ministerial staff in order to get approval before finalizing any of these details. But like Pam said, this idea was inspired by me by 2 of the members of my Sacred Land group from last year. Karen Benson and Liz Dixon started a green team for the Bear Creek HOA, and they were very successful in bringing people together for their first event. There was live music, games, activities for the kids, getting to know your neighbors, offering information on many ideas of taking care of the earth and becoming a green neighborhood. And in listening to Karen, she is an instructor at DU, very knowledgeable about just how important it is to develop relationships with people as an important step in our advocacy work. People are much more likely to listen to new ideas if there's some level of relationship, of friendship and respect. And so Karen and Liz were really successful with it, just a basic team of 3 women to get this organized and pulling off very successfully. But they were involved in asking lots of people to engage with them. So I wondered when I listened to Karen and Liz, it's like, how can First Plymouth maybe do something like this? And so I began to envision this kind of an event for celebrating Earth Day in April. Of course, the challenge of the pandemic, will we be in a better place to allow for an outdoor event? I hope so. And I was thinking, we are so ready to get together, to be community, to enjoy reconnecting. for all the new people that's joined in the last 2 years and has never been in the church or been in community in person, I just think we're so ready for something like this. And we'd need to look at, rain dates and all that kind of stuff. But Easter is April 17th, and there's just a small window. Earth Day is April 22nd. And then looking at the following weekend, if we had it on a Saturday or Sunday after 10 o'clock service on April 24th, because the following weekend is April 30th and May 1st, which is the lecture series with Jackie Lewis. So this event, it just seems like it's a perfect window. I mean, we are talking about Easter, death and resurrection. Is that not what is happening with our earth? It is dying, and we need a resurrection. And this could be a live adult forum. We're looking at an adult forum after the 10 o'clock service. It could be the other thing too is Jenny is talking about for the Maker Faith for April. The theme is make new resurrection, and she's community celebration. So I'm thinking that we might be able to partner with whatever her ideas are to put some kind of an event together. And there were a couple of ideas that came to my attention that reinforced this event. The first was that it's important to have fun at times, or we all get burned out with advocacy work. So the importance of having some fun. And the second idea that I really connected with was in the adult forum that we had recently on the future of church. One of the determining factors emphasized was the vitality of church. All the other variables of whether your church is going to have a future or not, the one variable that stood out the most was its vitality. And so what vitality we could have with this type of event, just to get us recharged again. And one of the other, things I was thinking too is it seems like it would be important to keep it positive. I don't know if we want to have a lot of literature about that 400-page UN article that Larry talked about. We all know the sky is falling. We're tired of hearing about the sky is falling. We've had 2 years of the sky falling with the pandemic. So I imagine this event to be positive, to be a celebration, to reconnect with why we love the earth, and to focus more on the celebration and the solution. And so some of the details would be like whether it's in the courtyard or in the parking lot, setting up tables. I know at Karen and Liz's, they had tables for composting, whether it's people information or paper flyer information, who are knowledgeable. Getting Carolyn to come from Wampost, I think would probably be a possibility. Other compost resources, talking about recycling. I know when Jasmine Barco did our recycling adult forum, in other group settings, she had like a recycling game. And I was thinking maybe the youth group could come in and sponsor this kind of game where you have like 20 items on a table and people come up and you try and decide, is this going to be a recycle, a reuse, a composting, a trash item? And it's amazing how many people struggle with that. And there have been other ideas around like a seed exchange, Xeriscape, having information about solar and wind for clean energy. I really like the idea of maybe even having an electric vehicle show. If we have any members in our community who own electric vehicles and are pretty knowledgeable, or maybe we've got some kind of business contacts that might be able to offer some information about the electric vehicles. If the goal for the event could be to strive to be zero waste, if we can role model putting this event on and really striving it to be zero waste, how would we do that? Everything that we're looking at has to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable.
Oh, that's a great challenge.
And looking at children's activities. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I just said that's a great challenge, Nancy. I like that as sort of the challenge of the event is to be
the zero waste.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
You're kind of frozen on my computer too, and I'm not sure if I'm sometimes miss what you're saying. I don't know if
Okay.
anybody else has a bad signal or not.
There are just two more items that I wanted to share on a little bit more serious note. When you look at the Creation Justice Covenant and how we affirm divine gifts of creation and affirm our connection to God, we pledge to commit ourselves with an urgent sense of calling. We understand that it's our responsibility. We desire that these deeply felt commitments be reflected in all the dimensions of our congregational life. And I was thinking, as part of this event and as part of Earth Week and the celebration, is to maybe it could be an opportunity for we voted on this covenant, I think like a year ago, 2 years ago. It could be an opportunity for all the ministries, groups, and CAMs to reflect on their commitment to this covenant. I'm not sure how that could be, whether it was a survey, but to encourage each group to really have a discussion about how are we supporting First Plymouth being a creation justice church? What have we accomplished, or what are the goals? Maybe a renewed commitment, a new goal. But to invite the group to offer their contribution to this celebration as well. Getting the children's group, the children's ministry to maybe look at some children's activities for the kids, like the youth group. Maybe they've got a topic they would like to really present or study and present, or maybe they'd like to do the recycling game. But to really look at maybe the music ministry, bringing some live music to the event. And the other idea would be, do we want this just to be for First Plymouth, or do we want to open it up? We've got Hillary in our group, and we've been connected with First Universalist and have had like Tom Aboud's adult forum. Would we want to invite them to celebrate with us, invite them to maybe have a table? These are, I mean, we can decide how big we want it, how small we want it. But it just seems like this has the potential for really providing a vitality to First Plymouth and to Earth Day and to creation justice. So I just wanted to present that idea and open it up for some discussion to see if there's enough support to send this proposal to Jenny. We've got 3 months, which is enough time, but we need to get going on it. So any comments or questions?
I think it's a great idea, Nancy. I would suggest maybe like having a contest too for the youth to write a story, or to put on a play, or write a musical or something like that, to have part of it. I mean, there could be all kinds of things that could be entered into this. I think that would be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the options are just amazing. So, I mean, some of it is how big or how small we want it. Thank you.
I really like your ideas about incorporating the other ministries and surveying them. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And I think that we are, of course, living in the uncertainty of COVID. So I'm interested in what Liz thinks about trying to plan an outdoor activity. I mean, weather aside, it can snow on April 24th. We all know that. But do you think, Liz, do you think that the COVID team would consider this to be a reasonable sort of outdoor activity to plan at this point?
Well, it's a good question, Jan. There is not a COVID team right now. There's advising going on to Jenny from various, from several people in the congregation, some of them medical, people. So that task force is gone. However, if we follow the guidelines that we have right now, you could certainly have something outside, but there would there's not an opportunity to have any food at all at First Plymouth right now. I think, Amy, you can verify that for me, correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
So, who knows what's going to happen, but I really applaud you going forward with that, and just, you plan it. And if it doesn't happen, the food part or whatever, you just don't do it. I would tell you that you should get that on the calendar now. And that should go through, I guess Jenny and Lisa Medina.
Rush.
And Rush. It should be passed out quickly because mission team would have to know about that. And since this is a committee of, you report to mission team, I think.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So you'd have to come back to Steve and and the calendar's just looking really full. But I think that's a wonderful opportunity. The 24th, as far as I know, is open. I would encourage you to do both. I would do Maker Faith and Adult Forum. I'd have Jenny participate with the Maker Faith, to get people that want to do their young children early, and then maybe have another event for Adult Forum. That sounds fabulous. You can do it. Does that answer your question, Jan? I think the 26th will know more. Do I think the 26th is going to be a revelation and a great day? Probably not. I think it's going to go into February. So that's just my personal feeling. And that's just being out in the workforce and knowing what's going on at, a national company. So.
Liz, and Jan, I could just add, we've been toying with what we need to do with Caring Awards, which is scheduled March 6th. Oh, and it is at the Welshire, and invitations haven't gone out yet because we're not sure we'll continue. We just don't know yet. And we're still trying to celebrate that for 2 years for the folks, 2 years ago and this last year. So it's hard to say, they're saying both coasts, the East and the West Coast are starting to see a slowdown in the Omicron variant, but the middle of the country is not. The cases are continuing to rise. And I think Jenny was hoping when they put out this new letter that we would be back in church sometime close to the end of the month or early February. And I still think that's pretty uncertain.
I agree. I think it's uncertain.
Mhm.
Maybe even to the point of probably not going to happen.
Mhm.
So.
One of the thoughts that I had is that with this planning, if we, get into March and April and life falls apart again, we've got the planning and the flyers and people's commitments. I guess we could always delay it and put it in May or June. I'm thinking once we get Jackie Lewis in, and then we've got Mother's Day, and then we've got graduations and school's out and people go on vacation, but that's when life is normal. Who knows what it's going to be like. So we could always delay it a month or two. We'll have all the pieces of the puzzle in place. We'll just have to delay it a bit.
I agree
I'm
with.
hopeful though. I'm hopeful.
I agree with that. And I think it's a wonderful idea. And I think that even if we can't eat, I think that the whole congregation would really enjoy the opportunity to have a central focus and outside and multiple activities and music. I think it's a really good idea. And I think we should proceed. And Nancy, are you willing to be the communications conduit? I already, of course, did contact Rush, but to work with Jenny and get her in. Great.
And
Yeah,
I think
I will. I've got this, the information that I presented tonight, and I can just tweak and edit that pretty quickly and submit that to Jenny, and then see if she wants to have a phone call or a Zoom meeting or something to finalize it, to see. I think she's already got some ideas like this, so we might be able to just kind of partner with a couple of other groups that she's thinking of to kind of share the workload. But I think what I'll do is probably email people after I have conversation with her to clarify where we're at in the process so that we can begin to reach out and maybe have a couple of co-leaders start to organize the details and start delegating some of this.
Okay. I was going to say, I wonder if having a Zoom face-to-face would save you a lot of time, and it's just nice to have a dialogue the way we've had right here. Just save you a lot of time in typing it all out. I'd say I'd be happy to be a buddy with you to meet with Jenny if you want to do it face-to-face on a Zoom, or if you want to preface it with a email and then follow up, whatever you
Yeah,
think
let
is
me
best.
see. I'll probably send a brief summary and just ask her if what her preference is
Okay.
particularly around her schedule, and then I'll get back with you on that, Pam. Thanks,
she-
that's a good idea.
Okay.
Nancy, would you like someone to volunteer to be your co-planner on this?
Sure.
Anybody interested in, I think it's always helpful to have two people working on any particular project, especially when this large.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I think to have co-leaders, I prefer to work as a leader, as a co-leader rather than as a primary leader. And then to find out from Jenny if she's got some other organizations or staff people that we might be a co-leadership team.
Sounds
And
good.
my sense is some of it would be to meet and identify the details, because I threw out a lot of ideas and we can have some of those, all of them, none of them. But to finalize the details of how big we want this to be, and then start contacting different ministries and groups to see if they want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that some of this is like the flyers are already made up. Like I've got the flyers from Karen and Liz's outing, and there are all kinds of resources of summaries of recycling and composting and things like that. So I don't think we've got to reinvent the wheel for some of these for flyers.
Great. And I will say that I have already begun investigating an electric car rally because some friends of ours up in a partner church up in Boulder did that last fall. They said it was very successful, and it's something I'm interested in. So I've already begun figuring out how that could be done. I just didn't know if you wanted it the same day as as the other event that would be probably in the courtyard. But I certainly think they could be simultaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it would
too.
draw more people, Jan, if it
Okay.
was at the same time. It would draw more men and probably younger people interested in
Yeah.
seeing. And there are a lot of members in the church that have electric cars. I would add to that after we went to First Universalist across the street and walked through their net zero church, that one of the things that they do, Bruce, help me if I mistakenly present this, but one of the things they did was install car chargers outside the church, and then they could draw on that energy to run the stove or whatever in the church. So they were offsetting that. And it seems like that's something we should be doing sooner than later. And I don't know if that's something we could accomplish by the time we have a car rally, but it certainly would be a big deal in my mind. And if we were going to, in the future, use the church for other purposes, there are likely staff and other people frequenting the church that would need a car charger.
Is that something that could be discussed at net zero meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, I will. I'll bring it up.
Okay, yeah.
And it might be worth waiting. I mean, if Biden's Build Back Better plan goes through, I think car chargers are even more subsidized in that than they are currently. But it would, somebody could look into that and see what it would cost to put 3 or 4 electric car chargers in the parking lot. I don't know what that expense is.
Pretty high.
But
I say it can be very high.
yeah, I know it's not inexpensive, but if somebody else pays for a lot of it, and it's determined that it's a worthwhile expense, it's worth at least exploring.
Yeah,
It could be, Bruce, you could look at it on facilities and add it maybe to parking lot or something.
Yeah. right.
See what it is.
Complicated. Now, the thing that, excuse me, that Bess is talking about is great, that they're running the church essentially on borrowed energy from the Teslas that charge the church. In other words, it amounts to a donation from the Tesla owners to running the church, which is like kind of an interesting idea, but
It is, but it also requires, it's more complicated than just installing
oh, yeah,
car chargers, because then you have to have, I don't know the terms, but it has to be able to go back into the building. I know it's not something we could do by April.
Yeah.
But certainly can be added to a list of, long-term.
Right.
Nancy, could I just ask one more thing? And I don't know a lot about where you guys have gone. I want to try to be at meetings as often as I can for these different groups. But one of the things that would interest me as a gardener, as you're getting close to April, is finding the sources for recycled compost that comes out of the communities, the counties and the cities. Maybe we could be a destination on that day for picking up compost for gardening. It would be really, I know, messy, and we'd have to use our parking lot, but our parking lot needs to be replaced anyway. So that's just something, just a reverse type of thing, rather than just supplying the education, which we need, but actually giving folks, here it is, here's the fruits of your labor. That's just a thought. I would love that.
That's a great
Yeah.
idea, Liz.
Yeah.
We have a community garden in our neighborhood, and they do that every spring. They just, I don't know, not sure where it comes from, but there's just a big mound of compost that's dumped in their parking lot. And anybody who's a member of the community garden, actually, they've invited other people in the neighborhood to come in. I don't know if you have to pay for it, but all those
Well,
details.
but if we had to pay for it a little bit, obviously we have a little
Yeah,
money. But I was
exactly.
just thinking that, the city and county of Denver picks up the Christmas trees and chops them up. And I know you can go pick it up. So I'm wondering if we could somehow do something like that. Just a thought.
Great idea.
We compost with cocoa, and we can order compost in the spring because we composted all year long at no charge. So there's probably lots of people in the church who do something similar, and they could donate their compost.
Mhm.
I also think it's a way to reach out to the people around First Plymouth that really don't have any connection with us. And if we say, oh, we're giving away free compost on Earth Day, we want you to participate, come be with us, they would do it. People would come by.
Yeah.
I would think,
Oh, yeah. They come to our recycle events.
yeah.
A lot of those people are Cherry Hills Village people that always forget their checkbooks.
And we would always ask, as you take some compost away, feel free to make a donation.
Yeah.
I'll look into that part of it because, Denver does compost pickup. You pay $89 a year or whatever. And I believe that they bag it and sell it at like Ace Hardware and other stores.
Right.
I don't think that you can get it from Denver in any other way, but already bagged. But I could be wrong. They do a dump of their mulch. There's cedar Christmas tree mulch over in by South High School every year, but they don't dump compost.
Right.
And I don't know if they would actually, if they would actually dump it in our parking lot because we're across the border. But I think it's a great idea and worth investigating.
Check with A1 compost. That's the one, I think the A1 compost is the one that helps process the city of Denver's compost.
Yeah.
And they also were the ones that we were contacting when we were considering putting compost in our landscaping at the church.
Mhm.
So we are doing composting, are going to, right, of the church. Whenever we start serving food again, we are going to compost our own
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
The whole
But-
community.
but that won't be finished compost. That will be hauled away
No,
compost.
that'll be haul away.
Yeah. Well, I'm really pumped about this event. And so Nancy, I'd like to be at least one of the people to join you in planning. Anybody else who wants to hop on board, there's room for more, but
But what I imagine is to have a couple of co-leaders to kind of organize the details, and then, people can submit different ideas, like Liz, what you've just done with your idea, and then people can maybe offer to lead a particular table, like the compost, and whatever details that you and composting wanted to do, or recycling, or to get the solar and wind energy, for people to pick a topic that really is of interest to you, and to be willing to take a leadership role in or table that booth, and then start reaching out to ministries to see if they want to also participate in that. But the first step is talking to Jenny, and I'll get that out tomorrow, and we'll see where we can go with that first, hopefully sooner.
thank you, Nancy. That's wonderful. Okay, well, moving down the agenda, I think we had adult forum speaker for either the 24th or May 1st. I think what was said earlier really makes a lot of sense, is have this event instead of a speaker.
Yep.
If anybody disagrees, speak up.
No, absolutely.
I think it would be useful, though, to identify which day, and this can be part of talking to Jenny, I guess, if there would be a Sunday in April that could be identified as Earth Day Sunday. Ideally, the 24th, I guess, would be the best, so that can be part of that planning. I think also part of that could be a trash pickup with maybe with Highline Conservancy. We did a tree planting. Some of us did a tree planting with them in the fall, but they also will have a trash pickup, several opportunities to sign up for trash pickup groups in April. So that could be something else that could be piggybacked onto our event. And I guess
I'll see if Eric is interested in some sort of youth activity and in trash pickup kind of thing, and work with him to see if that's something we want to try to do. And then we, as CJM members, can join that event. Why not?
sounds great.
I'm working with Eric, that you talk about piles of stuff in the parking lot. Well, there's two big piles over there on the west side, and that's mulch from our trees. And that'll probably grow when we do some more tree cutting. And Eric has got some ideas that the youth could spread that. I mean, I pushed them to that, but, and so that's on his agenda too, as a project.
Okay.
They could do both. But the mulch actually works as an environmental thing too.
Sure. Well, maybe we should just leave it at that.
They tried it, but they did it like in an hour to organize it, and they didn't have any equipment or tools, and they didn't make much progress. So we'll work, have it better organized next time.
Isn't one of our interns working with youth? I wonder if that would be, I can't remember their names, I'm sorry. Maybe Amy can help us out with that.
Amanda? Isn't it Sonia and Amanda?
Amanda,
Sophia Hayden
oh, no,
works with youth, and Amanda
you're
works with young adults.
right, young adults.
And I would still talk to Eric because he works with Sophia.
Okay.
So I would talk to both of them, because part of her is she's also getting training from Eric about how to do this in the church. So it would be great to work with both of them.
Great. Sounds good. Okay. Another part, I guess we can come back to all this, but another part of this that would be useful to start on now is to have a gathering of information about Earth Day activities in the metro area that we could offer either at our event or previous to the event through our I mean, that's part again about reaching out beyond our walls and sharing information with the greater community. So that would be another place that if someone, you know, could step up to volunteer to start collecting that information and having it available sometime, you know, in the spring, that would be very helpful, I think, to have someone coordinate that.
You know, we might consider asking Ashley if she would do that as a tip for like this first or second Sunday of April. And then that would get it out in a nice way and it wouldn't be redundant, you know. Then if she's not interested, I know Larry did it a couple of years ago or 3-4 years ago when we were actually going out and doing stuff.
She'd probably do it, Jan.
Okay.
Do y'all want me to ask her or do y'all want to do it?
We'll do it. Then mom
Okay.
doesn't, then she can say no to us. She
Yeah,
probably can't say
right.
no to mom.
No, she would say no to me and yes to you. So it's good you do it.
I'll send her an email.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. And then, you know, in the sake of time, I really would like to see if we can keep our meetings a little bit shorter. So I'm going to propose that we have a short discussion about a Share the Plate nomination for April and postpone discussing financials until February. There's nothing that we have to do urgently. All the information is right there in front of you on the agenda. And I think that unless people object, I think that would be wise for tonight.
Well, I'd like to just deal with the financial. I don't think it's going to take long at all. I'd like to get an allocation to e-waste, and I'd like to make sure you understand one thing, that's the one cost that was allocated to us.
Okay, let's first talk about Share the Plate nomination, and then we'll address that, Bruce. So I have contacted Outreach, I guess, and they are ready for us to sponsor a Share the Plate nominee again in April. In the past, we have done, gosh, we've done Groundwork Denver, we've had Earthlinks, we've had, oh gosh, help me with some of the other ones.
Oh, we've had Denver Urban Gardens. We've had
Right.
energy assistance, solar panels for everyone kind of program. We've had the mosquito
Range, yeah.
trail. I think that people seem more interested in, I mean, we haven't done anything like save the pollinators or anything that's sort of like insect related, butterflies, monarchs, bees. I mean, there's such a concern about pollinators, but for the most part, I think people open their hearts when the programs also impact people and they're not just some abstract environmental cause. I don't have any specific suggestion this year, and we don't have to decide right now, but we should talk about it at this meeting and have a decision by next meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
Any ideas come to mind for people? And I think we try to stay away. We have stayed away in the past from political action groups. But that doesn't mean we have to.
I'm wondering if there might be, and I don't have a specific one, but I know there might be an opportunity to support kind of recycling or green for some marginalized communities, such as individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I know there might be some community gardens around mental health. There were at one time. A lot of that may have gone after COVID. But it would be really cool if we could cross purpose with another ministry in the church doing creation justice, but maybe for a population, kind of like we're doing with Ready to Work, that doesn't have much access to opportunities, and we could help fund that. And if you want to, I can put on my list to see if I can feel out if there's some organizations that might have that dual purpose, if that seems appropriate.
That'd be great. There is one that works with, I think, people on the spectrum, and they do recycling. It's just right down by that Federal and 8th or something like that. I can't remember the name now.
Oh, you mean that blue something, blue?
Yeah, is that Blue?
Yeah, they use or however, the spectrum people to unassemble the computers and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be a good possibility. Okay, well, everybody keep your feelers out and let's be intentional about coming up with a solid nomination for the month of February. All right, so Bruce, what would you like us to attend to in the financials?
Oh, well, two things. One, the LED project is finally totally complete, and the last missing piece was the most expensive thing, which was to replace the 9 bulbs in the parking lot on those tall poles. And it took a professional cherry picker to do that, and it cost $1,200. And I kind of made a deal. I thought I already talked to you about this, but we need to formally vote on it, I guess. I made a kind of a deal with Carol Hainsey that half of that was due to just replacing the bulbs, but half of it was maintenance of the poles and the lights. So we agreed, or I'm suggesting that we share that 50-50. In other words, $600 out of the Green Energy Fund and $600 out of general facilities funds. So I put that forward as a proposal, if you haven't already considered it.
You did talk to us about this before, Bruce.
Yeah.
I think at our last meeting, I remember. Does facilities maintenance have money to provide for the split?
Yeah, they have that kind of
They
money.
do.
But they get a lot of money. They're poor too. Everybody is. But we do have the brand fund, which is great when things like water lines break and so forth and so on. But even there, we're limited to the interest off the principal. Okay, and then the other thing would just simply be, I just wanted to point out, I think those who don't look at these financial statements all the time, the total monies that we have in the creation justice accounts are the sum of 11 and 12 there, or 24,000, and then it's broken down to general creation justice, which is the one number there, the 11.7, and then the Green Energy Fund is the 12.113, and that's after, I don't know, probably the LED was probably $9,000 or $10,000 when it was all said and done. So any disagreement with that? I'm sure you're aware of that, right, Pam and Jan?
Yep.
It's just one is general creation justice, the other is overall. And then we did make $4,200 and so forth on the e-waste. And last year was our best year by far. And we had made almost $8,000 in profit, and we put, I think it was $6,000 into the Green Energy Fund, or about 75%. So I would propose that we do something similar this year with the $4,200. And just for discussion purposes, to have something on the table, $3,500 into the Green Energy Fund.
So Bruce, I just want to clarify. So are you suggesting that 75% of the proceeds from the e-waste would go into the Green Energy Fund?
Yes.
And that would be, what did you say, 3,500?
Well, that's rounded up. But
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And are you also suggesting that the payment of $600 to the church for the LEDs is coming out of the Green Energy Fund?
Yes.
Okay, and not out of Creation Justice
No,
Ministry.
no, that's the stuff that's already been allocated out of the 12,113.
Mhm. And do we need motions for those?
Well, I think it would be nice to have a motion on the 3,500.
Okay, I guess we have to have a motion before we have discussion.
Oh, well, no. That's up to you.
I'll make the motion in order to advance a discussion.
All right. I guess I would just wonder that before we transfer money to the Green Energy, the Green Energy Fund has money in it now, and I don't know, Bruce, are there specific projects that we need more money for at this point in time?
Well, the
Well, we
net
could buy
zero
car chargers.
that might be a small piece. Keep in mind that the Green Energy Fund is to be used for active projects that reduce active projects and not passive projects like
Right.
solar panels, geothermal, and that sort of thing, but not studies.
Well, since there's a possibility that we may need creation justice funds to support some of these community partners that we're looking to maybe, set up recycling programs for. It might involve purchasing the trash receptacles, the recycling containers for them. It might involve coming up with some kind of educational materials to promote it. I guess I would ask if maybe we could wait for that transfer until we know whether we need funds in the creation justice budget to advance those projects.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
So what have we traditionally done with the money from the e-waste? What's been our precedent?
Well, we haven't had this kind of volume before. Sometimes we've used it. We gave $1,100 once, which was virtually the entire profits of that particular year, to the youth to take I think it was an environmental trip somewhere. Other than that, they've pretty much gone to the general, what we call there was no Green Energy Fund. So it just,
Right.
Green Energy Fund has only been here for 2 years.
Right.
So.
Right. You established that when you got the caring awards, right, Bruce?
That's
And
right.
so was it when you established that you talked about, I wasn't on the ministry then, that you talked about that the proceeds from the e-waste would, or some of those proceeds would go into the Green Energy Fund? Do we have a policy about this? And do we need one?
Last year was the first year, and it just turned out that last year we made far more money than we'd ever made before. And I don't know, it was sort of, I don't know, it was because I was in both camps. I didn't suggest it. I think it came from Pam and Jan, but we thought, oh, it's a good idea. We're in the midst of the LED project. And by the way, the $1,000 prize we got went into the Green Energy Fund. And so we were looking to do more projects, and that's how it was last year. So
Does this ministry have the capability of moving funds from both accounts back and forth?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Set it up that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's your savior, just to, if,
This is just internal, and we're very lucky, by the way. There's no other ministry that has this kind of money,
no,
outreach type.
outreach.
Yeah, but there's no other ministry that does the kind of work we do, and you in particular with the community to, to fund our ministry. So it's been, I think we will always look at the proceeds from that and determine that a large share of them goes to the Green Energy Fund unless Creation Justice Ministries has some big whopping project. And this year, because I think we are looking at a couple of opportunities to work in the community, that it does make some sense to table the actual movement of what will probably be 75% of that money until we have made some progress with Ready to Work and know that this is going to be a $2,000 or $3,000 project. And even if the idea of looking for grants is one that we want to pursue, that adds, so much time to, that means it's probably not something we would actually complete in 2022. So I guess I would agree with Pam that it doesn't hurt anything to delay the actual decision about the amount and the movement of the money from general creation justice to green energy. Also, there may be some costs associated with the event that we want to plan. So I would move, I think, however, that this has to happen, if somebody else has to make another motion, we just table that motion until our February meeting and revisit it when we possibly, hopefully, have some idea about some other costs associated with some of our programming this year.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm thrilled. That was the original idea, was just that e-waste was a good thing to do, and if we got the money, all the better. And it was used for general whole earth in those days. And to see it go to ready to work, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
I would agree with Liz that you could transfer it back and forth. So it doesn't really make any difference. And that there should be efforts going on at our church that indicate that money that we've raised is for the promotion of making this a net zero church for our future. And I think that moving money speaks to that. And I would be in favor of moving some of the money, not 75% necessarily, Bruce, but 25 or 50, because later when we're not on the ministry, who knows what people are going to say. Then the other comment I want to make, which may be rough on the edges. So Liz, you'll have to help me. But I have joined church council. I think I announced that a few meetings ago. And there has already been an announcement that we're merging the funds together. And so what we think we might normally be able to use from these funds in the church may not always be the case in the church in the future. And we can't just decide because something takes too much time or energy that we're just going to spend money that we have sitting around. And I think that we have to change our thinking about what we spend money on and how we make decisions about it, based on what I'm hearing from serving on council. That's not to say that we're going to run out of money, but the purpose, and we haven't had conversations, but council's been asked to speak up about this when they are on ministry calls, that we are going to have to start using some of those funds for operations. So I do think that we need to be careful.
So, okay, and I agree with everything you said, but I want to make sure that people understand that these small funds that are
Yes, I agree.
in ministry funds, they're not part of the First Plymouth Fund. We'll still be controlling this, and this thing got really bad. So, yeah.
No, and at the same time, I feel pretty strongly that it's not responsible for a ministry like Creation Justice Ministries to simply be adding money to its, to be building up $12,000, $15,000, $20,000. We should be paying it forward in the community and in the church. And, I had this discussion many times as a PTA president. It's like, we got to stop doing candy bar sales and all this stuff and just building up this financial war chest. If we're spending money, we should be investing it. So and we have the money to share with the community, both our church and outside our walls.
I think that just to piggyback on Jan and Beth, money now is active. It's not sitting in some trust or some fund to just be there forever. I want to say that how I look at it is that money should be actively supporting the mission of the church. So if that's the
Mhm.
easiest way I can say it, that would be what we're trying to do.
That's good. Well, Bruce, I would say if you're okay with delaying this a month,
Yeah, that's,
the
that's
movement, and I think we'll delay our contributions to our environmental justice partners. We can vote on that next month too, because I am very much in agreement with Pam that it's respectful to one another to kind of try to keep these meetings to an hour and a half
Right.
when we can.
By the way, I've been contacted, well, he's a friend, but he's also the head of buildings and finance facilities at Lakewood UCC, and he wants to know all about what we're doing on energy, green energy. And so then I mentioned to him about the e-waste day, and he's really interested in that. So I'm going to go talk to them about our e-waste program.
Well, Bruce, you set the bar really high. You have the template.
Well, just in one small area here, I'm been blown away by some of the stuff Nancy and Steve have been talking about as far as involvement by the wider community.
All right, well, boy, what a energizing meeting. What we didn't get to this time, we'll get to next time. Please think about Share the Plate recipients. Think about some of the partner organizations that we might want to make donations to. Yes, Amy.
I would, maybe we don't have time for it, but the group has seen presentations, and this in the meeting is from, Together Colorado and 350. The legislative session starts today or tomorrow. So if we have an interest in participating in some way in legislation, waiting until February, we can do it, but there may be opportunities to take action before that. And I'm not pushing any particular group or agenda, but it would be helpful for me as a rep at 350 to know what the parameters are. It's like, okay, you can only send us stuff that we have a month to respond to, or something like, I just made up something ridiculous. Or we only want to know about these kind of bills, or we don't want to do any active legislation this year, which is all fine. But if there would be a way to get some kind of containment or idea of what this group is interested in, that's going to be really helpful regardless of whichever group you work with, because they're getting into sixth gear right now for the legislative session.
Tell us.
I promise to keep this to 60 seconds or less. But I have an active way to participate in Amy's statement. And that is, she's right, legislative session is revving up tonight and tomorrow. And I will be glad to forward this little bit of information, excuse me, to Pam and Jan. But a coalition of environmentalists will be, as they call it, dropping a bill along with the number of it and the explanation of language that has to do with some of you may know Coca-Cola is the largest plastics polluter on the planet. They and some others in the industry have demonstrated interest in being part of legislation. Colorado is poised to become one of the leaders in the United States, one of 12 states. 3 are already moving forward. But it has to do with directly addressing the waste on the planet. And it has to do with Coca-Cola in particular, others in the industry who probably and are likely to join. Environment Colorado CEO contacted me today. He has been a writer, an author on it, but it is part of the coalition of like-minded environmentalist groups. Given that we said we want to be more active, let our money speak, but also let our energy and time and voice speak. Um, Amy's right. It's happening now. It's starting tomorrow. The languaging and the number will be ready in 36 hours for us to consider. Amen. I'm done.
So,
Well,
when-
I think, I mean, this is an important question and we don't have to end at 8 o'clock, but we should maybe have a limited conversation right now about exactly what we wanted out of our presentations this fall and what the next step is. I think that Pam and I are pretty sure that this will need to be, that I don't know if there is the sort of energy at the church to get more people in the congregation to be more political about these issues. But that doesn't mean that the 12 of us and the 50-person newsletter email list there is that. So how do we fashion informing and motivating our members to have an opinion and express it to their legislators about these systems problems, because this isn't a personal recycling problem or, these are all systems and nothing's going to change without the politics. As much as people don't want to get involved that way.
There's opportunity to be part of structural change for me that unifies faith and we humans who are inhabiting the earth. That is heart for my faith. We can accept a Zoom conversation just for our group and then take it from there if we wish. In other words, we don't answer the larger problem now, but for me, structural change, whether it's global or right here, is pretty essential to my sense of hope.
Yeah.
So I think part of the question, and I think this goes, I know exactly which bill you're talking about, Phyllis. I know 350 is going to be supporting that too.
Yes.
What is the mechanism by which creation justice, if not the whole church, wants to learn, and what are the parameters? And maybe we can't answer it right now, but we probably want to figure it out before February. And it could be as simple as, if it's okay for like Phyllis and I to say, this is happening, you can do this and this is the fact sheet, do what you feel called to do, and then you do it or don't, which is fine because people are busy. Or if that's not appropriate, what is the appropriate way? The other thing is there are going to be like environmental lobby weeks towards the end of the session. And there's been training on bills and there's opportunities. Is it appropriate to share it with this group?
There's a one-page fact sheet I will be receiving in 24 hours that I would propose certainly could be shared with this group, to be followed by what strategies do we want to adopt or not.
I think
Okay.
that's a great place to start, I think, is information to this group and to our wider group of 50 on our email list is, this is action you can take now, or this is urgent action that needs to be taken this week, or I think it would be very appropriate to, I don't know, do you disagree? Do you think people would be too bombarded with information? Are we talking about weekly or just as it comes up? I know Nancy sent something from Together Colorado about signing on to a petition a couple of weeks ago. And I thought that was, people could do it or not do it.
I think for several months last fall, Steve and Beth and I kind of tried to discuss and figure out user-friendly way of advocating for legislation. And we went around and around in circles and never really came up with a user-friendly plan. It just seems like the legislation is constantly changing. It's so detailed. And so I don't think there's a simple or easy answer to this. It may be just exactly what we're talking about, just doing the best we can, sharing it. You can delete it or you can act on it. Steve, what can you share about what we did last month or last fall?
What we did was come to the same conclusion that I experienced, and I think you experienced throughout the last legislative session. Legislation is really messy and confusing, and bills come and go, and you think they have energy behind them, and then they don't, and they get canceled, and they get rewritten. Bills that sound like they're good bills for the environment turn out to be not good for the environment. So you can't just go with the buzz phrase of the day. So there's a website where you can get on. You can listen to the entire session if you want to, and it actually has an index where it describes which bills are going to be talked about in either the House or the Senate, and then and you can follow along. I know I am on my representative, David Ortiz. I'm on his Green Energy Committee. We are meeting for the first time tomorrow afternoon, so I will hear from my legislator as to what his thoughts are along this. I'm on two of his committees for the community committees, one for housing and one for the environment and green energy. And yet I've looked at his bills that he's proposing for this session, and none of them are environmental, but he's probably going to support a certain amount of bills. But even though I'm involved in his action committee and the legislature has actually started, I have no idea what he's going to do or what he's going to say, what he wants from me and what he wants from our committee. So it's early on, and yet I agree with what Amy and Phyllis said. It's also something this is going to get going, and it's going to have its energy, and the next thing you know, it's done, because it happens like that. And it's very frustrating because all throughout the fall and throughout January, I've been trying to find out, well, what are we going to do? Where are the bills? Because someone's been writing them, because they're being presented shortly. So I know it's frustrating. I don't know how we share this information. I'd be happy to share whatever my legislator is willing to let me share once we have our meeting on Thursday, actually. So, but I don't know what we'd use for a clearinghouse for this group.
Amy.
There's an organization called Colorado Communities for a Livable Climate. I'm a member with my ministry. We were invited to join as First Plymouth, and I don't know if it was ever discussed or a decision made, but there are resources for really good up-to-date information on all the bills. It's just most faith communities don't connect. And you have people like Phyllis who are working with other people who are working really hard on this. So I think part of it is, and maybe we don't answer it, but what is the frequency with which, or because there's other groups that are going to be doing the hard work of going through all this, and then this group can get the basics of what they can do just to call or send a letter. I mean, if people want to go speak on bills, that's awesome. And I'm sure Phyllis or I could help you connect to a bill that you like. But some ideas of what the church could do is we could vote as a committee. We're interested in these 2 or 3 types of bills. I'm totally on the recycle with Phyllis. It's awesome. There's also some clean air bills. If there's some focus areas, then the idea can be, are there groups that we're willing to get information from to do it? And again, we may not be able to answer this, but if there'd be a way to talk about it pretty quickly, so then if we want to do something, we can click into 1 or 2 organizations that are doing the hard work, Because right now I don't have a sense of what's acceptable to send, or not just for me, but what this looks like for this group. So I'll leave it at that. But there are lots of places where there are no faith communities, and we could just join and do what we want to as much as we want to. So, okay, that's it.
I thought that I think it was in the spring, that it was overwhelming to get all of that information in one email. So we would see 10 or 20 bills all listed from Together Colorado or 350, and trying to weed through that was probably, for someone who's never been involved in legislation action, was overwhelming. And then when you dove in, there were even another 20 or 30 bills sitting in draft form, waiting for them to be finished or eliminated or whatever. So I kind of like the discussion we had tonight about the bill. Phyllis is talking about Amy's idea about big ag, and maybe we have another subject matter, clean air, that we could agree as a ministry that we could focus on this year and get the bills on those. But no more emails with 20 bills listed, because because then I have to pick through them and decide which ones I'm going to write my legislator about. And you can't write 20 or 30 letters on different bills, or put all of them in one bill. So that's my thought.
I agree with that, Beth. And I think that I think there's enough trust in this group. And I respect the idea of following the passions and the interests and the knowledge of some of our members here who are more active legislatively. So, Amy, I think the bills that you are passionate about, and Phyllis, the bills that you are passionate about, and Nancy, if you, and Together Colorado, if there's one or two bills that you just think are really, really important, if we got information about your 5 top picks and knew when it was time to reach out to either the committee or the committees or individual legislators, that would be ideal.
Okay, I'll take this one on.
Yeah, I can look at regenerative ag, which may be brought in later, but there's some clean air bills that are coming. So I will do like one clean air bill. And then Phyllis has got the awesome recycle, not use so much gosh darn plastic.
What do they call it? Producer responsibility bill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we so need it.
Yes, I love that one.
Any particular bill that you all come up with that you believe is a solid bill and is a good one for the environment, let me know, and I will share it on our Green Energy Committee with Rep. Ortiz and make sure he supports it.
Great.
Or
That's great.
find out why he doesn't.
Okay, good meeting, people. Thank you.
We
All
trust each other. We trust each other. And that is truly pure gold, truly pure gold.
Well, thank you to everybody for what you bring to this group. It's always energizing, and we always leave with more questions and more to-dos, which is a good thing. Let's see. Nancy has volunteered to close us with a prayer, and Jan, between you and me, we'll somehow get some minutes out, right?
Yeah.
I scribbled tonight.
I hope we scribble different halves.
Yeah, right. All right.
Yeah, I'd like to just close this pretty amazing meeting. Great dedication with our team with this Franciscan benediction. May God bless us with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships so that we may live deep into our heart. May God bless us with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people so that we may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that we may reach out our hand to comfort them and turn their pain into joy. And may God bless us with enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in our world, so that we can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all of creation, our children and the poor. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, everybody. Be well, take care.
Thanks to everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Nice
Thank
job,
you, everybody.
Dan. Right, very good.
Bye-bye.